Coming up, we take a look at workplace analytics that uses the power of Office 365 to provide rich, actionable insights into how your organization spends its time, as well as the ways that people network internally and externally, and the effectiveness of collaboration across teams. We'll also share how it works, including how you can correlate workplace analytics data with other business information, generate powerful models, and best practices to drive positive business outcomes. Joined once again by the General Manager of Microsoft Workplace Analytics, Ryan Fuller. Welcome.
It's great to be back.
So I know a lot of people are using My Analytics to really get insights as to how they spend their own time to help improve personal productivity. We covered that a few months back on Microsoft Mechanics, but now you and the team are really delivering insights at the organizational level with something called Workplace Analytics. What's that all about?
So it's about knowledge workers, right? And it's about helping them do their jobs more effectively. And that's tricky, right? It's tricky to understand what makes a knowledge worker more effective. It's hard, unlike in maybe manufacturing where it's how many widgets per hour can somebody produce, knowledge work is much more complex. It's hard to understand what makes a legal team better than a different legal team, or how does a certain product team always deliver on time but a different one doesn't, right? And so we think about that as a data problem. Like lots of people have a lot of hypotheses about what might be good or bad, but very little data exists to solve this problem. Office 365 provides us data to do that, right? When you think about all the meetings and emails and documents and chats and all that stuff that sits inside the Office 365 cloud, it really is the largest data set ever created for how people spend time at work. So Workplace Analytics is a product that harnesses the insights that can be pulled from that, enables our customers to create whole new levels of engagement and productivity for their employees.
Right, and I remember a really great example that you gave last show where you highlighted all the hidden costs of really planning for executive meetings, and that was really spiraling out of control just for the prep that goes into one of those.
That's right, and just the visibility to what's actually happening and how much time is spent can radically change how people operate their business. But meeting productivity, like just reducing the amount of time in meetings is just the tip of the iceberg. We have customers using this in all sorts of different ways, which we'll talk about, that drive both engagement and productivity.
And I can really see how this becomes super compelling. For example, if you're maybe managing a merger and acquisition or other business initiatives and you really want to see how that progress is going.
That's right. People use this for M&A, as you described, to see our organizations actually being absorbed into the parent and integrating or not. Mm-hmm. We use it a lot of times for sales productivity. We use it for manager quality. We use it for transformation efforts. There's all kinds of different ways that this thing gets delivered.
So your team's then built all the tools to be able to generate these types of insights, but can we see it in action?
So of course, Workplace Analytics is really easy to use. We make it simple to get started and get value quickly. Let me show you.
Okay.
So it's a web-based application, so you can get at it from anywhere within Office 365. Start with the home page here, where you get a view into how large of a population you're looking at. So in this case, the demo is looking at 902 employees. We've got 6 months worth of Office 365 data in here, and it's just giving us a couple little stats about it that says that those people spent 343,000 hours collaborating over that 6-month period. So these numbers get fairly large. I've got a number of different tools that I could go into, but where I like to start is some of these visualizations that we have at the bottom, where we've got a handful of categories that help you kind of get your arms around the data and get some quick insight into what you're looking at. So I'll start with Week in a Life.
Okay.
So Week in a Life is just that. It allows you to pick any group of people, any team, any function, geography, et cetera, and understand what a typical week in their life looks like. So this team has an average of 25.6 hours per week between meetings and email, right? And 23.4 of those hours are during their work days, 2.2 are after hours, and I can begin to look at the breakdown of meetings and email by all those things.
You can see views of different organizations within that company.
That's right. You can see as I scroll down, because I've loaded in HR data, I can have some good context as to how does the HR function compare to the marketing function or the sales function, et cetera. And I've got all kinds of different views if I were to scroll down of looking at after hours or total collaboration or internal versus external, et cetera. And I also have a trend line over to the right side of each of these metrics. I can look at the trend or I can look at distributions. Sometimes the overall average doesn't tell the whole story because some people are really burning really hot and some people are not, and you can get a sense of what that distribution looks like. So lots of different things you could look at here. But instead, why don't we take a look at one of the next categories? And maybe I look at this and I say, wow, gosh, 16.2 hours in meetings per week. That feels like a lot. Let's look a little bit deeper at meetings. So we have this other view called meetings overview. And this helps to get a sense of meeting quality.
Okay.
So first thing out of the gates, we have these few different meeting quality indicators. So multitasking, that's a big one. How often are people just sending lots of emails during meetings that they're in? If they're doing that, it's a sign of a low quality meeting. Conflicting hours, this is what we mean by that is how often are people double, triple booked during the same time periods? And that's hard because you don't know if you can expect people to actually attend.
And what does the 9 million represent?
Yeah, so the 9 million is an aggregation of looking at all these different quality indicators, how much time, and time is money, is spent in what looks to be low quality meetings. So $9 million of people's time is going to meetings that appear to be low quality, right? This can be a good call to action for people to get an idea of just how big the opportunity might be to dig into this stuff.
Sure.
So lots of different stuff we could look at for meetings. Another good category to start with is management and coaching. So this gives you a lot of insight into how managers spend their time with their teams. So this graph at the top is how many hours do people actually get with their direct manager present, right? And you can begin to look at how much time are managers spending in one-on-ones with people, and how does that vary by function. Like a lot of companies will have a rule that managers should be spending at least a half hour every 2 weeks in one-on-ones. Yeah, this you can kind of see if that's happening or not.
Right, and it can be a positive or a negative thing depending on the company.
That's absolutely right. I mean, you can get indications of micromanagement, or you can get indications of awesome mentorship and training.
Right.
Networks and collaboration is another piece here. When we talk about networks, we talk about them in context of how many people are you actively interacting with on a regular basis across the company. We have found time and again that top performers, or people that have the best business outcomes, have much larger and broader networks across their companies. Right. And so that's highly correlated with things like positive sales outcomes or positive performance ratings. The opposite is also true. As networks shrink and they get smaller and smaller, it's a good predictor of attrition.
And you can totally tell because maybe your manager can unblock things for you, help you out,
That's
or maybe
exactly
they
right.
can't because their network's too small.
Absolutely right.
These are things that really can contribute to the overall work health of an employee.
Well said, right? And we talk about all that power of the data inside the Office 365 graph. This is the kind of thing that just really isn't measurable in any other way. But the way that knowledge workers work is through networks and is through interacting with other people. So this allows you to measure that.
And can I create custom queries of the data?
Absolutely. So a lot of the time, the visuals that we've built get you the answer you're looking for. When they don't, we have the ability to build your own query. And it's extremely flexible. I won't go into it in depth because you can get quite fancy with it. But I could do a query around people or meetings or groups of people. I've got a number of different templates here. So maybe I want to open up my meeting hours by attendee template, which has a few metrics already calibrated for me, like meeting hours with at least 2 attendees, or meeting hours with people in level 3 and an LT member, or different things like that. So I can calculate these things in very granular ways. And then if I want to, I can add filters to them. So maybe I only care about looking at people in marketing, et cetera. And I can run the query. And then come back and see all of the different queries that I've run, which are available for me to download, put in Power BI, put in some kind of data science package, and basically do further analysis downstream.
So that's going to output a table of data effectively that you can visualize with some other tools. And I can imagine there's a lot of value in terms of combining workplace analytics with maybe some information that you collect externally, maybe in CRM systems or in HR systems, performance ratings, engagement scores, those types of things, right?
That's absolutely right. I mean, what you saw in there, HR data is always part of it, just so you can slice and dice and group and categorize people, but it really comes to life when you put in outcomes data. So I could take you through a real-world example to bring this to life a little bit more. So we worked with one Fortune 100 retailer that was working with us, and they had a big problem of low engagement scores, high attrition, and people were complaining all the time about being burnt out in too many meetings, too many emails, et cetera. So they used workplace analytics, and they saw a lot of evidence that people were constantly double booked, people were constantly multitasking, people were doing too much after hours work. But nobody quite believed that those were the right problems to focus on, right?
Okay.
The management team said, yeah, sure, but I need to be double booked because I need to know what else is happening in any given time slot, and then I just decide at the moment which is the most important thing for me to do.
Which maybe one of your directs might not know if you're going to turn up
That's exactly
at
right.
their meeting. Yeah.
So people were really frustrated because they didn't know if their manager would show up, and they had to schedule it 3 times to get a decision made.
Right.
But so what we did is we took all those workplace analytics metrics and merged it with the employee engagement survey that they had already run. And what came out of it was that the behaviors that we had identified as problematic, like the double booking and other things, really strongly correlated with disengaged employees. So now all of a sudden there was evidence in context that those set of behaviors were causing this kind of negative vibe and negative engagement with employees. And so they put together a change program. They trained people. They actually used my analytics to help people keep score. And after a few months of working to change those behaviors, they had some really impressive results.
So it's really great in terms of being able to take 2 different data sources and pull them together and really prove something out. It sounds like a really powerful tool in those types of circumstances, but what's under the hood? How does all this actually work?
Sure. Yeah. So we start with Exchange, calendar, and email metadata coming out of Office 365. We find that email and calendar alone typically provide around 20 hours of time per week for each knowledge worker. That's even more for managers or more collaborative functions. Then we map that with organizational data coming from an HR system, so things like roles and hierarchies and geographies, et cetera. And that allows us to aggregate at all those different levels. And once that data is in context, we create all this very large library of behavioral metrics that describe a wide range of behaviors related to productivity, engagement, networks, time use, et cetera. The data very frequently gets combined with other business data, so think stuff coming from Dynamics, CRM, or Workday for HR data. We can also pull in a lot of outcomes data, so maybe quota attainment in a sales organization, so you can see what your top performing salespeople do differently with customers, all kinds of different things that you can enrich it with. And what's cool is it's not all just looking at it and deciding how to interpret it. You can do some real data science here. So you can really build those models that are highly predictive of outcomes that you're trying to drive.
As you said, it's such a big data set. I know a lot of people watching are wondering what this means, though, from a privacy perspective, seeing that it's looking at data in exchange, my calendar, et cetera.
Absolutely, and that's super important. First thing on that, this is all customer data, right? This is your data. You have full control over how it gets used and deployed and what visibility it has across the organization. Also, you should know that Workplace Analytics only looks at header level metadata, so it doesn't touch content of emails or attachments or any of that stuff that's often considered a lot more sensitive. And of course, we default to de-identified data that's aggregated. So kind of like an employee engagement survey, you typically can only see result sets that include at least 5 people in them, et cetera.
Okay.
Right, so you're not looking at personally identifiable levels. Of course, that's all entirely up to each customer, how they want to configure that, but we have a lot of different toggles that are built to cater to a number of different privacy scenarios. You can also choose which population of employees are part of whatever analysis you're doing. So if you wanted to exclude, the legal team or the M&A team or parts of different geographies, you can do that as well.
So we have a lot of IT professionals that watch Microsoft Mechanics. What would I need to do to actually light this up if I was running the IT for my organization?
So from a tech perspective, it's pretty easy. We work with you to help identify the scope of employees, the right privacy settings, et cetera. Then we have a dedicated team that helps with onboarding and training analysts on how to use this. Then the admin will assign licenses to whichever analysts will have access to it. It typically is a small number of analysts, especially to start.
Makes
obviously
sense.
very sensitive data. But once we do that, the data, usually right out of the gates, you can get at least 6 months of historical data, so you can start to get to real insight very quickly.
So that's really compelling in terms of the progress and how we're actually leveraging behavioral insights for the workplace. But what else are you and the team focused on? What's coming next?
Sure. Yeah, so we started with email and calendar, as I said, and that gives a very robust signal. But of course, we're very excited to add more signals from across Office 365. So Skype and Yammer and OneDrive, SharePoint, all these different signals that'll make it even richer. We'll also be doing new use cases. So it's not just analysts that can do whatever. We'll have it very targeted solutions around things like sales productivity or collaboration overload, et cetera. And then deeper analytics capabilities, making this thing smarter with natural language processing, machine learning, all kinds of network analytics, et cetera.
So where can people go to learn more about how to start using this?
Well, you can request more info about Workplace Analytics with the link below, or by contacting your Microsoft representative.
So thanks for a great overview, and thanks for joining us again, Ryan. And of course, keep watching Microsoft Mechanics, the latest tech updates across Microsoft. Goodbye for now.